Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Boulanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage. Our guest today is keynote speaker and founder and CEO of Peripheral Thinkers, a collaborative think tank where entrepreneurs, business owners, and corporate leaders learn, share, and apply lessons that propel their companies beyond obstacles and change the trajectory of industries worldwide. He's also Chief Revenue Officer for Intelligent Contacts, which is a communications and payments SaaS company. He's a board advisor for 2 startups and also an author. Paul was labeled stupid, slow, lazy, and a daydreamer as a child. Undeterred, Paul has successfully applied lessons from one experience to the next, from personal to professional, industry to society, battlefield to cornfield. I want to ask you about that. His unique perspectives on challenging conventions and creating unlimited paths to success, regardless of market conditions, have influenced companies of all sizes, including GE, United Healthcare, Atos, WebMD, and AT&T. Please welcome to the program, Paul Daniels. Paul, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for that introduction.
Yes, and you know what? Our listeners, most of them will know that my background is being a magician, entertainment side of things before I came into doing what we do at trade shows and training companies on their salespeople to be more engaging. And Paul Daniels, as you know, because I saw an article, was a very famous English magician. Right. So whenever I hear that name, as a kid, I'm kind of going off track here, but as a kid growing up, I didn't have very many channels. And when we finally got cable, and I was probably like 11 or 12 years old in a small town of 500 people, I got to watch the Paul Daniels Magic Hour every Friday night at 11 p.m. I got to stay up late and I'd record it on my VCR. So anyways, I have fond memories just to that name. So I feel so connected to you already, Paul.
Outstanding. Well, I'm glad, and my friends in the UK continue to tease me. Come on, Paul, give us a trick. Show us a little bit of magic.
Yeah, a little bit, not a lot.
I often will sign, Paul Daniels, parentheses, not the deceased magician.
Yes, right. Exactly. Good. Okay. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way and that cleared up. So, so I think our listeners are going to soon find out that you're an unconventional thinker, and I mean that's really what you're about. And before we dig into that, I want to know more about you and how you came about to this. So what is your background? We kind of touched a little bit on, when you were younger. Can you tell us that story so we can kind of better understand where you're coming from on this?
Yeah, sure. So up until school age, like any normal kid, having a ball, dreaming and seeing the wonders of the world. Grew up in Southern California, riding my bike around the canyons of the San Diego area. Going to the beach and doing all those great things, and school comes and it does what it normally does. It kind of puts you into conventional approaches, and they've got standardized lessons and testing and the like. And I didn't do really well, but I wasn't necessarily failing. I was just really struggling. Now, our family moved a lot. So by high school, I'd moved 14 times. And by age 30, I had moved 26 times.
Whoa. So is that military? Is that because of military?
I kind of wish it was military, though I grew up around the military. I think my dad was just running away from the FBI. I don't know. We just kept changing our names. I'm kidding. We moved a lot. So I was always a new kid in school, which gave me a chance to kind of start over, if you will. Mm-hmm. But in the end of the day, the labels kind of stuck. It was, you're slow, maybe not that smart, and you might be a little bit of a daydreamer. That even followed me into university, followed me into graduate, followed me into the corporate world. And at age 39, I was still considered kind of an outsider. Hey, now, Paul, you've already, generated $1.2, $1.3 billion in recurring revenue by age 39, but we still don't quite understand how you do that. Age 40, our daughter was diagnosed with dyslexia. And I went, oh, I get that and that. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. And they said, well, would you like to be tested? Of course. I mean, I'm paying for it. Why not? I found out I was dyslexic.
Huh.
And that opened up an entire world of language for me to reference, say, that's the skill I use as a dyslexic to achieve this. And since then, not because of me, but a lot of people have studied this, we've cracked the code. The dyslexic super skills, and they are super skills, not just the learning difference of reading and writing. These super skills are found in some of the most prolific innovators throughout history. Einstein, Henry Ford, JFK, Richard Branson, Agatha Christie, Aaron Brockovich, Muhammad Ali, the Wright brothers. I mean, just the list goes on. So now having this foundation, I finally was able to explain, here's the skills: interpreting, simplifying, and inventing. Those are the 3 skills I use to create this solution for your customer or for your company. Now I finally had it. And that's what Peripheral Thinking is. It's the mirror image of those skills that are found innately within the dyslexic innovators that are now available to be learned and used by neurotypical people.
Wow. So Paul, let me just rewind there for a second. So it wasn't until you're diagnosed, like you were being successful, but you didn't know what your super skills were or what your superpower was. You were just kind of successful despite the fact that you were dyslexic. Yeah. You didn't know, you weren't diagnosed. Right. But then once you were, that's what helped you actually decode why you were being successful. Am I getting that right?
It helped me put a language and terms to it. I knew that I've always seen things that most people miss. And that I make connections between various forms of information, regardless of the source, and come up with new ideas, new approaches, new solutions, new products, new revenue streams. But being able to explain how I went from a tissue box to a letter of intent for a $200 million deal took some explaining, and people couldn't follow it. Well, it was this plus this other. And then I had iced tea with this person on a front porch that owned some property, right? So it goes on from there. And eventually I end up with a $220 million deal that we did in 6 months, when no one had ever done that in our industry in 16 months.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're really good at making connections from completely different, sources. You really piqued my interest there, because this letter of intent with a Kleenex box, is that what we said? Now, can you kind of just tell that story briefly? Because it's kind of like you kind of dropped that on us, and I'm like, what the heck was that about? Because I just need to know what that is, because I don't know. I can't put the connections together here yet. So you need to give us more.
Yeah, right on. I'll do it briefly. And frankly, if any of the listeners here want to have the full story, we'll get some information out, and I will send you an electronic copy, a free copy of the chapter I wrote in my book specifically about this story. Okay. And it's free. Just we'll figure out how to do that. Okay, Anders will figure out how to do it. He'll tell you. So it's Black October, and my team had just done a great job. We closed about $10 million 2 months ahead of our quota, and I received November 1st my quota for the following year for North America, and it was $150 million. So I grabbed the Kleenex box because clearly my glasses weren't working right, because $150 million, that's not right. So I'm cleaning my glasses and I'm like, okay, so that's not right. The decimal's in the wrong spot. Company's never done more than $50 million worldwide. And I just did 10, and they're saying it's 15 times that for the following year. So quick call to the CEO, and he confirms, yeah, it's $150 million. Good luck. Click. Okay. So I do what most people, in the great leadership position do. I went shopping, like not shopping for a client like shopping. So my wife and I were looking for property in North Texas, and we're shopping around one weekend for property, found some property, loved it, but it's not for sale. Huh. Well, we figure out who the owner is, make some calls. Sure enough, Earl Johnson lives just 100 yards down the dirt road. And he says, well, why don't you all come by and we'll visit, but the property's not for sale. So we visit. Long story short, at the end of that, he said, well, I reckon y'all are nice folks. So if I was going to sell it, I could give you the right of first refusal, or first right of refusal, whichever the right term phrases. And I thought, oh, that's terrific. And then driving back to the city, I thought, that's what I need, because I need a large client and I need to eliminate competition, because our deal cycle is about 16 to 18 months. And I've got less than 12. I've got 12 months at the time to get that done. So I have no time for competition, no time for RFPs. I've got to find a huge company that's 15 times bigger than any of the others that we've done. And the long story short, found them, did the research. There's a whole lot more of peripheral thinking that was involved in crafting this message. The first meeting with the CIO, I walk out with a letter of intent signed by the CIO stating that they will work with us. We have X amount of time to confirm that we can deliver what we say we can, and we can have it unfettered access, no competition. If we meet the expectations, we go right into contract. That was the 1st of January, first week of January, and on June 7th, we signed the deal for $220 million.
So you made your quota like way ahead of time and went over top of your quota, right? So
right.
Wow. Right.
And it was by thinking differently, by seeing things differently, by taking different approaches. This particular client wasn't buying what I was selling, which was IT outsourcing. They were fine. However, the client needed to generate some revenue, some money. They needed to come up with money to build what's called a war chest. This is old sales speak, a war chest to pursue the largest piece of business that they had ever gone after. And we delivered that money and that war chest to them. And less than 18 months later, they signed a $1.2 billion per year deal using that war chest. And I attached our value proposition to helping them win that business.
Right. So, wow. Okay. So there's a lot going on there to, for everyone to unpack. And like you said, so what we'll do is I'll get the link or whatever, or we need to opt in, and so people can dig into that story completely. So, wow. Okay. So let's unpack, peripheral thinking. And you mentioned the three kind of skills that fall under that. Can you just kind of give us a better understanding of what it is? Because you've told us, what it's done for you on the sales side of things, and just kind of it is thinking outside the box in a way, but I don't want to just call it that. So can you just dig into it more so that we can kind of get a bit for us neurotypical people? How do we do this, right? Like,
Yeah. And who would have considered neurodiversity to have actually super skills, right? Super skills are for the superhuman, and neurodiverse people are the less than. So peripheral thinking mirrors 19 skills in 6 categories that have been identified as innately found within dyslexics. And I rattled off a few. Like I said, there's 19, so I can't touch all of them. But in essence, peripheral thinking allows you learn to see things from different perspectives, from as you mentioned, outside of the box. And as you do that more and more, and you expand your awareness while in the periphery, you gain insights that you store and apply and combine in unique ways to address a challenge, or to achieve the next goal, or a greater goal, or find a new way of a new direction, an additional path, a parallel path, whatever that is. So the quickest way to do it is sort of a brief exercise, and we can do that now, or I can send that also in the book. But it's an imagination.
Let's do it now. I'm game. This is interesting.
Look, if you're listening and you're listening, not watching, and you're driving, there's a part here. Do not do this. I'll tell you. Okay, so imagine that you're in a mountain field covered with wildflowers. The sun is really warm on your face, air is crisp and cool. And as you look out on the mountain field, bam, right in front of you is rising out of the flowers like a monolith, your biggest challenge ever. For me, that $150 million quota, right? Okay, so put your hand in front of your eyes. It doesn't make sense, but that's what you do. You just put it in front of your face, just so that you can't see what's in front of you, but you can still kind of move your eyes around. Well, you can't see that challenge right in front of you, but what can you do? Your eyes can see things by looking up, look down, look left, look right. And you can find something that you've never seen before, even if you've been in the same room that you're in now for years. Okay, so I'm assuming that you found something. Again, if you were driving, this is the time not to be putting your hand in front of your face. You just get it. Okay, right, so you put your hand in. So you can't make out the details of what you saw, but you can at least acknowledge it. So I do this from this same room all the time. And there's a really unique shadow coming through my window here against a paint droplet on the wall. Okay, so I found something new, even though I've been in this home for 25 years. I can see that now it's more clear because I'm staring at it. That's peripheral awareness. Before it was peripheral vision, now peripheral awareness, because I'm looking at it. We look at that challenge in that mountain field, and instead of staring at it, let's assume you move to the right, say 100 yards. What does that new vantage point uncover about that challenge? Well, likely you get a little bit more detail, some depth, and you can walk all the way around that challenge in a circle, right? A 360-degree review. But you're still looking at that challenge from your perspective. And if you've got a team and you take them on that journey around it, it's also from their perspective, maybe filtered through their sense, their set of experiences. So from that position, 100 yards to the right of the original starting point, instead of looking at your challenge this time, look around. Now what can you see? Well, likely there are other objects, maybe different terrain, and there are other people, but those people, they're not part of your team or your company. They're not even part of your industry or your network, and they're not looking at your challenge. They have their own and their own way of achieving their goals, of overcoming challenges. They have their own processes, procedures, solutions. Those people's ideas and experiences may be just what you need to see your challenge from a new perspective using a very different reference point. Peripheral thinking takes seemingly unrelated ideas from the periphery and reassembles them. And what we did in the mountain field is called interpreting. It takes those ideas, solutions, processes, procedures, proven activities, and collects them in a way that they can be combined with other peripheral experiences so that you can interpret the principles and apply them to overcoming that monolithic challenge. It's what I did. Interpreting was one of the skills I used to overcome $150 million. And I think I did pretty well because we did 220.
Right. So now, like, this reminds me, just of the, that what they call the RAS, reticular activating system, this idea that we've got our unconscious helping us looking for solutions. And it seems like, you've trained yourself to look for those, helpful hints and tips and ideas to combine more so, or you've cultivated that. Is that
actually
kind
the
of
way,
a way of saying it?
It's the way that the dyslexic brain is wired.
Okay.
So what I've learned is how to teach other people to think that way. It's natural for me. I was born with it. I can remember at age 5 having experience with my father and immediately knowing at age 5, anything is possible. And I meant it, not just kind of as a kid, but like really anything is possible. I can see opportunities everywhere. It's like taking a lens off and you go, oh my gosh, it is so clear. It's actually medically proven that dyslexics have a broader and more sharp peripheral vision.
Wow.
We just do. So it's the way the brain is wired. And
Yeah.
peripheral thinking is just teaching your brain different ways to think about the same issue. And the more we do it, we even shed the quote, thinking outside the box phrase, because the box in itself is a self-imposed constraint.
Right. And I felt bad saying thinking outside the box because it sounded like it, but it was too quaint, like too, well,
it's coming, but there is no box. We just think and we see and we do and we try. And of course we fail. We're not soothsayers, and we can't predict. We do predict very well the future, but I've made tons of mistakes. But it's fascinating, and my clients have really enjoyed doing this, and the results are lots and lots of new revenue and clients and terrific success. Trajectories changed. Some industries even changed. It's been great fun. Okay, I'll stop there.
Well, I find this so fascinating, and I definitely love the fact that you found this superpower, right? Like that that's the inspiring part of you. I really feel is that you've taken what some might consider a negative, and it's a real positive, and that's inspiring to me too, because my daughter is diagnosed with dyscalculia and dysgraphia.
Yes.
And so she's, just about to go into high school, and she's struggling, and we're just trying to help her along, but it's, she has strengths definitely, right? But it's just in different areas. And so I definitely want to tell her about this conversation when I get back home.
In fact, Anders, I'd be happy to speak with her about it. And I love speaking with young people that are in that spot because she's neurodiverse, there are innate super skills found within her. There are only between 10 to 15% of the population is dyslexic. Only about 20% is neurodiverse. However, 20 to 30% of entrepreneurs, 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. In fact, NASA actively recruits people with dyslexia. Almost 50% of NASA is dyslexic. And some have called dyslexia the MIT disease because of the number of students that are there that have it.
Wow.
The challenge is there aren't enough to fill the demand for the workforce in the year 2025 and beyond, based on the skills needed. So we must learn it, even if we. So my point is, I have to teach you to be dyslexic in order for you to be super successful going forward. Sounds crazy, right? Yeah. But because the world needs more of the small minority of us that are here. So that's my passion, is teaching people how to tap into those super skills, and it unlocks all kinds of opportunities, regardless of the profession you're in.
That's awesome. I just love that. So, there was something when I was kind of doing my research before we got together here, and you touched on it a little bit, but I kind of want to kind of explore this. And this is the idea of an idea repository, right? You talked about collecting, these different things, and how do you store them? Because for me, I would think the things I notice don't make sense until until they come together. So what is this idea repository, and how can we kind of use this if we can?
So the Peripheral Resource Library is the tool that I've created, and we are expanding now to make it available for more and more people online. But in essence, it's some 4 or 5 things that you can debrief any experience, things that come to mind. Sometimes I'll have people do it in the morning, I'll do it in the afternoon, they'll do it 10 seconds, 30 seconds in the morning, lunch, and in the evening, and they start adding these experiences, peripheral experiences, to their peripheral resource library that have a contact, some context, some content, a conclusion, and a category. I mean, I can go into all kinds of other, explanations about that. If you want to know more, you can find out more about that. But that is, in essence, the way that that becomes your repository. And as you have more interactions with other people, you're gaining insight. So it doesn't have to be just your experiences I learn a lot by reading books, yeah, I know reading books takes me a long time, but I still do reading books, seeing movies, just walking around, talking with other people, and I'll take their pieces of wisdom and categorize them and put them into my resource library, which for me is my brain. So as a dyslexic, it's all here. What we see and hear as dyslexics always reminds us of something else because we remember virtually everything. Not like photographic memory. It's more experiential photographic memory, if that makes sense. So for neurotypical, for anyone else, it's just capturing the principles. What's that lesson that I learned? And where did I learn it? And how do I categorize that? Okay, so that's about revenue growth. That's about risk avoidance. That's about changing the landscape. Whatever you want to categorize it. And when you have a goal and you say, boy, we're trying to double our revenue. Great. I'm going to go to my resource library and find categories that have double revenue or increased revenue and track back to the lesson, the principle that I learned from the person or the experience and some of the context. Take that in and go, now how do I apply that? How do I apply that lesson I learned from Ivan, who's a friend of mine who owns 6 bakeries in Bulgaria? How do I apply the way that Ivan runs his business or the way he overcame a shortage in materials, in the products to still satisfy his clients and grow from 2 bakeries to 6? Okay, there's some interesting things. I'm not in the bakery business, Paul. I'm a home builder. Right? But just stay with me. Or I'm the bank president, or I'm the sales manager for a SaaS company. Right. Ivan still has great lessons. And so does the person at Home Depot. And so does the postal carrier. And so does walking around the block and just being aware of what's going on. So does the dog running across the road. There's lessons everywhere, which is why I say, look, you have access to everything you need to achieve anything you want. Truly. Some say it flies in the face of convention. Exactly. That's exactly right. You can access everything you need to achieve anything you want when you know where and how to look. And the where and how to look doesn't take a lifetime. I just taught you in a few minutes in that little exercise, one different way of where and how to look.
And that reminds me a lot, and I don't know if you're familiar with neurolinguistic programming, Paul, but I'm going to guess with your sales background that you might have come across it and everything. And, that was what, the founders would talk about, is that our mind is this vast, vault of resources that we can have access to at any time, right? And to tap into that. And so I'm just seeing a lot of parallels, which, whenever I see, we're talking about making connections and seeing things in different areas, but whenever I see it over and over again and you go, oh yeah, that's just like this, it just lends credibility to all of those instances, right? They're like, oh, there must be something to that, right? So, wow. Okay. So let me ask you this question, because you are a Chief Revenue Officer of Intelligent Contacts, and with your sales force, your marketing, departments, how do you do you cascade this down to them to get them thinking out of the box? I did it again. Peripheral thinking. Yeah. And so what have you done, in terms of maybe there's innovations or those sort of things? Can you kind of speak to that? I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that Peripheral Thinking has allowed me to do as CRO for Intelligent Contacts and being CRO for other companies and EVP of sales. I've been president of division. I've run 2 of my own companies. The focus is always on the client. What do they need? I need to get in front of what they need so that I'm preparing for what they may need in the future. And that requires more than just a linear view, right? Our brain typically looks at a challenge. It examines the challenge. It looks beyond the challenge. What's that goal that I'm trying to achieve? I reference the past. What's worked previously? What are my competitors doing? What's the industry trends that are coming in? That's very logical. It's common. It's conventional. It's not what innovators do. They think differently about it. They go to that mountain field and look for other things. So it's simply asking some questions. Great. So why would our clients want to do that? Well, because the industry says this. Okay, great. Conventional wisdom and industry best practices are designed to give you some standards. They're also designed to have everybody look the same. Even the trends, when adopted by our clients, make them look the same. So it's the path to mediocrity. And sadly, if you stay on that path long enough, you'll be irrelevant. So we can't be irrelevant, always somebody coming, and disruption comes from outside the industry. So we look outside and we say, what are other industries doing preparing for the recession? What is the bakery industry, just to pick up on Ivan again, but how did they handle the Great Depression? Well, you can't imagine the number of innovations that happened during the Great Depression, right? So in that sales environment, I'm always asking, where else can we get information to get ahead? To be different, we have to think different. To succeed, we must get in front of, in advance of our clients' needs and satisfy their needs now. Even if I'm selling something that's very similar to something else, how do I tie that to a more important, a more transcendent, more transformational initiative by my clients, right? How did I sell $200 million of just IT outsourcing? Well, I attached it to $1.2 billion in new revenue for our client. They just happen to use us as the vehicle. So at Intelligent Contacts, we do the same thing with our solutions. We're looking always at new technology, but how is it applied specifically to transform the experience for our clients and make their business hugely successful? Nothing better than a client that loves you and wants to tell everybody about it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and then some.
Okay.
So
sorry.
Paul, I've interviewed quite a few people, and my mind kind of just spins when I'm listening to you, because it's just like, oh yeah, that's like this and that's like this, and so I think you're just being around you, you're having an effect on me with some of my ideas, because one of the things that came up for me, and are you familiar with Jay Abraham? He's like a marketing
absolutely
guru.
Absolutely.
He does because he's worked with so many different industries. Like, it reminded me of the bakery thing in Bulgaria. He steals things. One example he had, and maybe this is the same kind of thing, was there was a baker. No, this was a bakery. This is different. Bakery who used the idea of trade-ins, like a car. Have you heard this one?
No.
And so people would bring in their crust from another loaf of bread, and they would get a certain discount or a free loaf of bread with a purchase of a loaf of bread, or whatever it was. There was some sort of deal.
Yep.
And so it was so innovative, so different, that the news picked up on it, and it became like, it was like guerrilla marketing in that sense. Like, it was, just an idea. And so, yeah, there's so much room for innovation.
Absolutely. And innovation in itself, to innovate, is not to create a brand new something. In fact, there are no new somethings. If you break it down to the basic elements, they're not. JFK said, we're going to go to the moon by the end of the decade. Conventional wisdom wet itself. And then peripheral thinking jumped in. Of course, it was NASA that said, great, tell every industry around the world we'll take all their ideas, whatever they have, we'll take it. So we can start sifting through to literally weave technology, material, and a bunch of other things together to do this. And they succeeded, not because they had to come up with a new chromium, whatever that is. It's, I need a spacesuit that's airtight. Who has airtight things? And I also need to be able to have some monitoring in there. So I need some technology. And they started bringing those things together and putting them together. Wright brothers didn't create wood. They didn't create a propeller. They didn't create an engine. It was already there.
Yeah.
Right? They put it together in a unique way. An electric engine, they're not creating electricity. Electricity already exists. Electric motors already exist. How do you apply that principle in a new way to achieve something different? or to make something better.
Yeah.
That is the secret of innovation. Steal from others in a way that's not, robbing their IP, and just apply it and tweak it to your situation.
Yeah. I see a lot of, I think they call it hierarchy of ideas, right? Or like the idea that you chunk up, like if you go, here's this idea in one industry, what is that an example of? Kind of like your categorization of those ideas. And you go, it's this. And then to go laterally across to another industry and then find the example that makes sense there. And it's just making that leap across, but having this, like, and again, how you teach people to think like this, to give them the structure to be able to make those associations is amazing.
When you make that connection with your baker in Bulgaria, don't stop there. Figure out who the baker knows. Well, the baker has a banking account. They have suppliers. They have customers. And that takes lateral thinking, which is very common. You just kind of going one step aside. Peripheral thinking goes laterally and then branches out from there.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And brings all of that back through one channel, multiple channels. And that's how you feed that peripheral resource library.
Wow. Okay. So lots to learn, lots to unpack. How can people get a hold of you, Paul? Because I think there's going to be people who are curious. So what's the best way they can reach out and find out more?
Certainly can follow me on LinkedIn. It's, linkedin.com/in, and it's Paul Daniels Jr., Paul Daniels Jr. You can go to my website, which is pauldanielsjr.com. You can also find it by going to peripheralthinkers.com. They link together. And there's a contact tab there. If you go to the contact tab, put in your information. I don't sell it, believe me, none of that. And you put in this show and say, book in the comments, I'll send you an electronic copy of my chapter from Peak Performance Mindset Tools for Entrepreneurs that gives you the story of that $200 million deal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
My pleasure. Oh, and my
your
personal
generosity.
phone number, if they want to get a hold of me, I'm not giving you my personal number. I'm just teasing.
I was kind of like, whoa, he's going there. He's going. Oh no, he's not going there. Okay, all right.
The look on your face is priceless.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. People are just listening. They'll have to check out the YouTube video. Just go to the end. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here to share with us your super skills and how you can teach people to think like you. I appreciate you being here.
The pleasure's been mine. I absolutely love your show and what you're doing with it, and the engaging with people. That's at the heart of everything I do. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Thanks again, Paul. And thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement and you're an industry leader or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, Engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening and stay engaged.